Amiga, do you ever feel caught between two worlds? You cherish your cultural background, but sometimes it clashes with the realities of raising a family in modern America. You might feel pressured to fulfill traditional expectations, yet you crave a life that allows you to be your true, authentic self. If you're a Latina mom nodding your head right now, I see you and I get it. Balanced Motherhood is more than your average Mami coaching program. It's a supportive comunidad designed specifically for you. I understand the unique challenges you face navigating between generations and culturas while forging your own path as a mama. Stop feeling like you have to choose between your roots and your future. Balanced Motherhood empowers you to create a life that celebrates your heritage, embraces your motherhood journey, and prioritizes your own happiness. Spots are limited. Don't miss out on this opportunity to connect with a supportive community and create a more balanced life. Visit the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the next Balanced Motherhood cohort. I can't wait to meet you. You're listening to the Viva la Mami podcast, a podcast about all things motherhood. I'm your host, Jessica Cuevas. I am a mother of one on a mission to redefine the meaning of motherhood as a first-generation, bilingual, and bicultural Latina mami. Regardless if we feel like a failure from time to time, or if we succeeded with the little things in our motherhood journey, it is important to celebrate all of these experiences as madres. So, bring your cafecito as I invite you to be a part of this space and create raw and honest conversations about the exciting and challenging parts of being a mami. Ahora, vámonos. Hola, hola, amiga. Today we are welcoming Amanda Santiago, who is a working professional turned stay-at-home mom. In this VLM Spotlight, Amanda shares why she decided to be a stay-at-home mommy, how she structures her day-to-day life, and how she practices self-care. As someone who currently has a 9-to-5 job, juggling the demands of being a working individual and mommy, talking to Amanda gave me perspective about what stay-at-home mommies do. To my surprise, there are so many similarities Amanda and I experience, especially when it comes to making sacrifices as a mommy. We had a wonderful conversation and discussed how to break the comparison battle between stay-at-home moms and working moms. There are many misconceptions about stay-at-home mommies that Amanda supports and encourages other Latina stay-at-home moms through her social media platform, A Mama Drama. When she's not momming or supporting moms, you can almost always catch her bringing a show or watching a movie. She lives in Chicago with her husband of 13 years, and together they have 2 boys. It was a pleasure having Amanda with me, and I hope you enjoy this VLM Spotlight. So, here's my conversation with Amanda Santiago. Hola, Amanda. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for being here at Viva
Thank
la
you for having
Mami.
me. Yeah.
Of course. Of course. I found you through Instagram. I love your platform just because you speak like raw, true reality about just the day-to-day life of being a mommy. And you definitely share some really insightful information. And there's a video that I recently watched about your story of motherhood. So I'll definitely give you that space to share that. But first, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself in terms of where you grew up, where you currently live, your family, and what you did before becoming a mommy?
Okay. So my name is Amanda Santiago. I am Puerto Rican and I was born and raised in Chicago. My grandparents came from Puerto Rico to Chicago in the 1950s, and because there were no jobs over there, so my grandfather moved over here first. He sent for my grandmother, and they started building their family over here. I'm second generation, so my mom was born and raised in Chicago as well. And I feel like a lot of the time I am struggling to hold on to my culture. My grandmother taught me Spanish. So I know because of her, and everything that I got culturally was from my grandmother and from growing up in church because I went to a
Mm,
bilingual church. And so my parents didn't think very much of trying to pass down culture to me because
mm,
they they lived it with their
mm,
parents. And then, you know, I got it from my grandmother and from church.
mm.
And so I got the bicultural experience
Yeah.
with my parents and my grandparents. But I am a mother now and I married a white guy. So we are raising bicultural children as well, but it's a little bit different than the way that I grew up because I
Yeah.
don't have my husband to help me add into the culture part. He grew up in a different way, even though he grew up with Latinos, which is an interesting story. But yeah, we are a family of four. We have two children, two boys,
Mm,
and I have been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years.
okay.
Before becoming a stay-at-home mom, I actually worked at a university here in Chicago, and I worked in the department that tells you what you owe and you have to pay.
Oh,
And
you're that department.
yeah, it wasn't a fun department to be in. So I had my son, and it wasn't a job that I loved,
Mm,
and it didn't pay very well. And I just felt like I did a cost benefit analysis.
mm,
How much of my money is going to be going to daycare? And it was a lot. It was the majority of it. And I just felt like I don't love this job. It's not worth it. My husband, he's a Chicago public school teacher, so he's in a career, and I'm not in a career. I'm in a job.
mm.
So I'm going to stay home. I didn't even feel like they appreciated me at that job, anyways. If they did, there was an opportunity for advancement at the time. And I had the most seniority there. They didn't offer it to me.
Mm.
And so I was just like, you know what? Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty familiar with just the whole concept of higher ed because I am an expat of higher education. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, which is unfortunate, when you have devoted so much time in it and even if you liked it or not, there was just no opportunity for growth.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's good that you kind of analyzed it once you became a mommy that you're like, well, yeah, what are the costs or benefits of this? And also just thinking about your children, right? About, how would they also grow up with a mommy who's, I guess, just like content, right? About who they are in terms of a career. And if you knew that that wasn't for you, then it was obviously a sign. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
It was
Yeah.
a scary step to take, though, even
Yeah.
because it was saying goodbye to a paycheck. And that
Mm,
paycheck helped us pay our bills that we had. When I quit that job, we had less money. And
yeah.
so we couldn't afford the apartment that we stayed in. I started working for Instacart. Like I've had like several part-time jobs while being a stay-at-home mom, but I started working for Instacart. Instacart is also not a great place to work. And I've done several things while being a stay-at-home mom to try to make ends meet, but
Yeah.
that choice did require some sacrifice, and we ended up leaving the apartment that we were in because we couldn't afford it anymore, downsizing a little bit, and we're happy where we are, and we actually rent from my mother-in-law, so she's not gouging us
Yeah,
on
that's
rent. She's paying her mortgage, and it's a good arrangement that we have going on here.
yes. Yes, that's good. I'm glad that that worked out for you. Yeah.
It's still like a humble living situation, but we're happy, and my son goes to a good school, and it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, you introduced us about your family really briefly, but in terms of you becoming a mother, ¿verdad? A mommy, how has motherhood change your identity when you first became a mom, to your firstborn? Can you kind of walk us through that?
I think motherhood changes you, but in the best way. I think at the core, I still am me at my core. I still love the same things. I still value the same things. I
Mm-hmm.
find relationships and community to be very important. I still like love movies to death and they, spark fire in me. Like I I love to be outside and I love to travel. Those are all things that haven't changed
Mm-hmm.
as I am a mom now. But what has changed, I think motherhood refines you actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you better. It makes you less selfish. And motherhood has really taught me about what self care is really, because
Mm-hmm.
I had to think, how do I care for my son? What do I want for him? And then, oh, that's how I take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me that lesson. And it's something that I'm still trying to practice. It can be challenging, but I know now how incredibly important it is.
Yes, yes, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that because I have, well, I guess he's going to be 22 months tomorrow as of, November 15th, 2022. And so I'm still kind of new to this like motherhood thing, right? But I in the beginning, I definitely said, oh my gosh, motherhood completely changes you. Like, I am a whole total different person, like, good and bad, I would say. Like, I definitely grieved a lot of my past identity. But I'm glad that you mentioned that that still hasn't gone away. It has refined you, to, yes, somewhat of a different person, but you still carry on what you mostly value, what's mostly important for you. And I'm glad you mentioned that because oftentimes like moms think like just because they become a mom, they have to be a whole completely different person or they have to change their trajectory or they have to, do things differently than they used to. And it's almost like they lose themselves too, which, yeah, I think that should change. I think that it's a twofold experience, right? It's like your new identity adds to the person that you have always been. And I guess it's good that you've mentioned the self-care piece because it's definitely like, well, how do I take care of my children when I should also take care of myself? And in our community, as Latinos, we don't talk about that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll definitely talk a little bit more about the self-care piece because I think that that is very important, especially when it comes to motherhood and being a stay-at-home mom. But you share on your Instagram account that you are a stay-at-home mom. And so you kind of shared us about what made you make that decision, but is it a decision that was it intentional or was it because you had to or was it because you wanted to? Like, can you kind of walk us through that? And is there like a kind of time frame, right? Because a lot of moms are like, oh, I want to be a stay-at-home mom for this amount of time. But for you, do you have like a timeline of what that looks like?
So I'd like to start off by saying I had no plans to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm,
I pictured my life differently. I pictured myself in a career and owning a home by now. And that didn't happen. I think that, you know, you can plan, right? But then life has its own turn. I
mm-hmm.
went to the university. I worked at the university so that I could get a master's degree for free. And I did. So I have a master's in business management. I went to Columbia College in Chicago for undergrad. So I have
Okay.
my undergrad was arts, entertainment, and media management. And then for my master's, I added the business piece, right?
Yeah.
And when I finished that master's program, I thought, okay, well, this is going to open the doors for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to be able to work wherever I want because, I have a master's and people love people with education.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt the reality was is that that is not always the case. You have to have connections. You have to,
Yes.
have you have to know someone, you have to have experience in that particular field, even though, like, how are you supposed to get experience if you no one gives you a chance? So I experienced that a lot. I think
Mm,
a lot of millennials have been disappointed by their education in regard to the opportunities that it opened
mm-hmm.
for them, and I am one of them. And so I found myself applying for jobs. This was before my son was born.
Yeah.
Applying for jobs, trying to, like, get my foot in the door in something that I really actually wanted to do. And by the time he was born, that still didn't happen. And so I'm in this job that I don't love, that's, paying the bills. And I
Mm-hmm.
already got the master's degree from it. And now I have this little human, this most precious gift that I've ever been given in my life. And I have
Mm,
to decide what is more valuable:
mm,
time with him that's fleeting, or, you know, the comforts that I have and this paycheck that I'm getting. And so I decided, you know, this place doesn't value me. I'm going.
mm-hmm.
And, it was hard. It was hard. It was scary. My husband and I had very many conversations about it. And it was my decision that he, put in my hands. He's like, you're going to be the one to stay with him. You're going to be the one to sacrifice your time and the time that you would have potentially building a career. Like, this is you. I'm not going to force you
Mm-hmm.
to do anything. We're a family, we're a partnership, and whatever we're going to do it together. And for me, I just decided that the time was more valuable than the paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's what led me to make that decision. But I have been, like I said, working part time here and there to make ends meet. And
Mm-hmm.
I also have been, like, working on skills that I believe that are marketable and valuable along the way,
Absolutely.
because I don't think this is a forever thing for me. I think
Mm,
it's for now. And my next step is, I'm not going to go to a job like I had before.
mm,
I could get a job like that pretty easy because I have a lot of experience in it,
right.
but that's not what I want to do. If I'm going to be taking time out of my home, it's going to be doing something that I like. Those
Mm,
are the conditions. And if it's not that, then I'm sticking with being home. And I do believe that I have built marketable skills enough that I will be able to make an income doing something I like more. And I want it to be flexible because I do
mm-hmm.
have two children now. My youngest is 2 years old, pretty close to yours.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I want to be available to them. I don't want to miss things.
Mm,
My oldest is 5, so he's in school. So I think that, when my younger one, he's starting preschool probably next year, and it'll be for a little bit of time. So
sure.
the more they spend time in school, the more I can dedicate to work outside of the home. And that's
Right.
sort of what my timeline is. But I'm already getting my feet wet a little bit
Yes.
with working along the way.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. I'm kind of feeding like this sense of like kind of like you are reignited, right? Like through your journey that you are recognizing who you are,
Yes.
that you're not like it's not like okay, I am a stay-at-home mom and I don't have these skills or it's going to be hard for me to find a job. Like you don't have this mindset. I feel like even like if anything you're becoming more motivated, to for yourself, right? To find the right job that works for you. and your goals, and you are recognizing your worth. And that is awesome because whenever you are ready to join the workforce, like you already have this like mindset in mind. And hey, like write it down, like start like writing it down, because if anything, that's going to motivate you to look for the perfect place, for you, and based on what you're looking for. That is great. I love it.
And I think that being a mother changes you in that way.
Yes.
I think I've grown so much in my confidence because, like, when you first become a mom, it is so, like, kind of knocks you off your feet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And you have to, like, learn how to, like, walk again almost, but you're holding a baby. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I I owe a lot to my children and helping me grow
Mm.
as a person, and all the things that I want for them. I have also learned that I have to set an example for them by, doing it myself.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's like, how are you supposed to advocate for them when you should also advocate for
Hmm.
yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love it. And so for mommies who are kind of like contemplating, right, like to become a stay-at-home mom, right? Like what type of advice would you give them before anything happens in making that decision?
I would say that support is an important piece of it. And that's something that I have struggled with a lot.
Mm.
The thing about being a stay-at-home mom is that it's harder than it looks. You just expect that you're their mom. So you'll know what to
Mm.
do. You'll know what to do all day, and you'll know how to manage everything. And there's a real learning curve. So
Mm.
before you become a stay-at-home mom, I would just walk into it knowing that there's a learning curve. You probably are going from a working mom or a working woman
Mm-hmm.
to a stay-at-home mom, and you're going from seeing people every day to seeing nobody. You're going
Mm.
to, you know, getting dressed every day to, like, what's the point of getting dressed when this child is gonna vomit on me for the like third time? And it's different,
Mm.
and it takes some getting used to, and there's no structure.
Mm.
You are you are creating the structure. You are the boss of the whole thing. No one's telling you what to do. That's awesome, but also, like, what do I do? And
Mm.
am I doing everything right? And so you overcompensate, and you want to make sure that, the house is perfect so that nobody thinks that you're lazy and
Mm.
that you're like mooching off your partner or anything like that. And you want to, you know, make sure you're doing all the developmental appropriate things for your child and helping them learn. And, like, it is so much pressure on you, and
Mm.
all the pressure comes from you.
Mm.
So I would just, like, sort of keep those things in mind and give yourself a lot of grace and know that you
Yeah.
can't do it all in one day, but
Yes.
you do a lot in one day.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. It's a lot of insightful information, especially for mommies who are contemplating whether if they should or not. And when you mentioned about like there is no structure and you have to create it, how do you build that structure, right? Like how do you do these day-to-day things without, knocking yourself on the wall? Or maybe you do, I don't know. But can you kind of walk us through that for folks that are kind of considering being a stay-at-home mom?
So the structure of the day really depends on where your child is.
Mm.
How old is your child? Like, it was different for me, the structure of my day, when I just had one child and he was a baby. I found that the structure of my day is better now that I have two children and that my youngest is a toddler than, it was when I just had one child and my youngest was like 1 year old.
Mm.
First of all, I was still learning how to structure the
Mm.
day. I was a brand new mom, and there are certain instincts that you have as a mother, but I think a lot of it is learned
Yeah.
by experience. So right now, I I have more structure because my oldest son is 5. And so I have to get up and I have to take him to school. And that provides a structure. I'm out early. So that's good for me and that's great because in order for me to function or blossom or whatever, I need sunlight. We're plants,
Mm.
okay?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
need we need air, we need water, we need sunlight. Like
Yes.
that's basic needs in order for us to grow, right?
Right.
So I am getting out of the day when the sun is out, and at 9 o'clock, I've already had a walk because I walk my son to school
Mm.
I walk both of my sons. And my younger son, he loves being outside. So we go to a playground or we do something outside as long as the weather is nice, which,
Right.
it was last week and it's not anymore.
No.
So that's another reason why I take advantage full force of being outside while I can. Because in
Mm.
Chicago, if you do not,
Mm-hmm. It's
there
so
will be a
unpredictable.
time. There will be a time for several months, like seasonal depression is here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna be locked inside. So all the outside time, I take advantage, and so that was my
Yes.
structure, I guess. Up until like last week, we come back home, we have like lunch, and then I put him for a nap, and he was napping real great for like 2 to 3 hours, and during that time, that is my time. I
Mm.
used to, when I was first a stay-at-home mom with my older son, I would use that time to clean everything and make sure that I had like all my ducks in a row so that, nobody could tell me nothing and I could feel like I was doing a good job as a stay-at-home mom because there are no performance reviews. And I didn't
Mm.
want my
Mm.
husband to get home and like, my husband isn't like this, but in my mind, he might think it or whatever. So I don't
Right.
want to even go there. I didn't want him to like get home and see everything a mess and be like, what did you do today? So I
Yeah.
used to be like that. I used to spend the whole nap time cleaning. And then there was a shift when my son was when he turned 2. I feel like when my kids turn 2, that's when I start to like get it together. So,
Okay, I'm almost
um,
there then.
yeah, yeah. So when he turned 2, I started exercising during
Mm.
nap time.
Mm.
That my older son, and I realized that I was cleaning like the top shelves where nobody can see, and there wasn't any dust there. But my husband would get home and not even know. And it's like, did you not notice like all the things that I did? And someone would come over on the rare occasion that they did, and they wouldn't know either. They wouldn't know
Mm.
that there was no dust on the top shelves. They had no clue. So why am I using my time on this? I could, be giving back to myself. So I started to
Yes.
do that during nap time, and that is a practice that I now have with my second son. One of the first things that I do is I exercise
Mm.
because it's self-care for me. It gives me endorphins. It helps me feel more confident about myself because I still haven't lost all the baby weight.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are 2 years later.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have lost some weight this year, which is great,
That's good.
but not all of it. And so I'm still working on it. And
Yeah.
I've decided that this nap time is for me. It's the
Mm.
only time that I get in the day where I'm just by myself and I can
Yes.
focus on myself. And so that's why it's been really hard the past couple days when my son is like, I'm good. No, I'm not gonna nap. And I'm just like crying today. Like,
Yeah.
please go to sleep. Like, you're taking the only time that I
Mm.
have for me. Like, I go to bed at 11. I'm like doing stuff from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Please just give me this time. So then there's nap time and I do stuff for me. Then, you know, when he wakes up, then I got to go get my other son from school, make dinner, like do bath, like do all the stuff. And then by the time it's all over, it's like 9 o'clock. Maybe I might watch a show with my husband, or maybe we both have something to work on, so we're working on that. And then, we go to bed and like do it all over. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the structure for me now. But
Mm-hmm.
me, like last year, it was different because my son was in a different developmental stage. So the structure changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the toddler stage. I don't think twos are terrible at all. Like my son is super sweet. I think
Yeah.
threes are hard.
Okay.
Three-nager is a real thing.
Three
And,
natures.
four NATO, I've heard the
Oh,
term
I've
of
never heard of
tornado.
that.
And speaking from experience, my son is now 5, and I find 5 to be the most challenging of all the
Oh,
ages. My husband had a real hard time with 3, and I was like, I'm okay with it. 4, maybe even, but 5 has been
five.
like a real challenge for me. And my 2 year
Interesting.
old is just like a little joy.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's all about adaptability, right?
Hmm.
Like you adapt to their growth and development, but also just like, yeah, like the day to day, right? Like even like this week where your toddler didn't nap, like how do you adapt to that,
Yes.
right? When you have already developed this routine and this structure. And I think it's, when we're talking about like the skill sets that you develop as a stay-at-home mom, that essentially they are transferable to any job, like that level of adaptability, multitasking, like all of those attributes that would be beneficial for really any job. So I'm like
Hmm.
here thinking, let's build your resume, right? But like
No, yeah.
but
I'm
it's
down. I'm down.
definitely no. But it's definitely like it gives you perspective about you know how much momentum there is. And I know some stay-at-home moms that don't do much, like they don't have structure, they just don't do anything. And I don't know if that's because that's how they define it, or maybe it wasn't set to them, like what expectations there are. There isn't a rule book, there isn't like a manual, right, about like what it is to be a stay-at-home mom. So like you definitely talk about like you creating structure based on milestones or developmental pieces of
Hmm.
in your children's development. But how do you connect, like do you connect with other stay-at-home moms, or how do you find resources to better be proactive, but also in a way to just have this level playing field, right, between giving a good amount of time with your children, a good amount of time to your home, but also a good amount of time to yourself? Like, is there anything out there, I guess, that can help you gather maybe resources or things that can give you a better idea of how to develop your own structure?
I think developing your own structure is really hard. There's
Mm-hmm.
that uh, there's that adaptability piece, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's, your son is teething. you know, the structure for that day is going to be different. He's cranky all day or like, or whatever, like he's crying. You have to hold him the whole day. So like, there's no structure. There's a lot of adaptability in this.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I was so like upset today to the point of tears because I'm like, no, I had a structure. I had
Yeah.
this time set aside for myself and you're ruining it, dude. Like, please don't like go to sleep, please. Like this is all I have. And I would say in regard to self-care, right? Moments for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I it looks it's the same thing. It looks different in different stages. So when your
Mm.
baby's a newborn, self-care is like, I took a shower and that's it, and
Yeah.
that shower felt really good. And you just fall back on sort of these like self-care systems. So today I did not get to have the time that I wanted, but I have these habits in place, right? So after I cried, because I think there's a lot of crying, at least in my experience as a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
I cried a lot more when I was just with my one baby. Now that I have two and I get out of the house more, it's better. But after I had my little crying session, then I made myself a smoothie.
Mm.
I I need nutrition. So that's something that's gonna feed my body and help me feel better. So I made
Mm-hmm.
myself a smoothie and I sat on the couch and I started to watch a show. And not a show of his, a show of mine,
Mm.
until they started cursing and I'm like, oh, this is not good. But yeah, that's what I had to do to like get myself out of that moment.
So, like, when moments of chaos where you don't have time, do you at least, like, I don't know if the right word is like reward yourself? Is there kind of like a reward system for you because you work so hard? So, like, how do you practice self-care in that regard?
My approach to self-care is really practical. So I have habits in place. I'm not over
Mm.
here like, taking bubble baths for a treat, which if you are like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But like, I don't feel like that helps me at all in terms of self-care. Like what helps me in terms of self-care is knowing that I'm taking actual good care of myself, my body, my soul, my mind. Like
Mm.
there's you probably had a psychology course in your education at some point. The one thing that I remember from that course was those hierarchy of needs.
Mm.
So he he had this theory about needs. And so you start with the most basic is physiological. And then you move on to like, what's the next level? Safety. And then
Mm.
love and belonging, esteem, and self actualization is at the top of it. So when you are on your motherhood journey, sometimes you only have time for the physiological stuff. So
Mm.
that's like food, water. So
Mhm.
make sure that you're drinking water and you got some nutritious thing in your belly. Okay.
Mm.
Safety. I forget what would apply to safety. I actually created like a whole carousel on Instagram about this. I just haven't referenced it in a long time.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Love and belonging. So it would be like community. Sometimes you just need to be around people,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a stay-at-home mom. Like you're not around people a lot. You're around this little person and that's it. Which
Mm-hmm.
my little guy is my best friend right now, but I have an outlet, right? I have this Instagram account where I am connecting with women that I have been able to
Yes.
connect with you.
Yes.
We both live in Chicago. We're both
Right.
Latinas. We're not in the same circles, but we were able to connect because I
Mm-hmm.
have this thing. And
Yep.
this is not a thing that I had with my first son. So that is
Yeah.
a way that I sow into myself by connecting with other mamas like me. You know,
Yeah.
you're a toddler mom, you're Latina, you're a Chicagoan, like we have a lot in
Right.
common.
Absolutely.
Actualization is like, I guess becoming your best self, sewing into everything that makes you you. And I feel like I do that as well on this
Mm.
account because I have these skills that are merging together with my motherhood journey, and I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to like put it all on display all at once. And these are the ways that I feed into myself. And so I don't reward myself. I just take care of myself in the
Mm.
various ways that I need it. And I try to pay attention to the ways that I need it. If I'm cranky, girl, did you eat? Are you thirsty?
Mm.
Like today I had to restructure my day. I didn't get to do the exercise part. And so when my husband came home and he's like, "Did Lucy nap again today?" And I was like, "No, he did not nap." And he was like, "Oh, okay. What can I do for you?
Mm.
What do you want to do right now?" And so I was like, I need to make dinner because I wanted to have dinner ready for when my son got home. And so I focused on making dinner. And then after I was done with dinner, he was watching the kids and I did my exercising at that time
Mm.
instead. So I'm very grateful to have a partner who gets it.
Yes. Yes. That's
He's a
great.
teacher too. So like he's here with me in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows. He gets a taste of what it's like
Mm.
to be a stay-at-home parent and he knows
Mm-hmm.
how hard it is.
Yes.
So
It
he
is.
gives me, opportunities to get what I need when I
Yeah.
need it.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Yeah, and thank you so much for that framework that you shared, and I can share it in the show notes, and I can definitely like link that post
Hmm.
that you reference because yeah, that is so applicable about what really self-care is. And yes, the first thing that usually comes to mind is like how do I take a bubble bath or, like treating yourself to things, rewarding yourself, but I think self-care is definitely mindset, and if you know that your body needs this or if you need to connect with someone, and it could be as little as like calling your mom or calling, a best friend or whatever, that in itself, it's like you met whatever you needed to have, in terms of making sure that you are good about yourself.
Circling back to like the structure piece that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
you were like, "Oh, call your mom." This is what triggered at me. It was like calling your mom in the day. That's a part of the structure of my day
Mm.
is calling my mom. My mom does not live in Chicago. My mom lives in Florida.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's another thing about like the village that you have, the support system, like that's important
Yeah.
for raising a child, but a lot of us don't have it
Yes.
because, my in my case, my mom lives in Florida. She didn't live in Florida my whole life. She moved to Florida like literally right before I got pregnant for the
Mm.
first time. And like she wasn't about to like move back, like she moved her whole life.
Yeah.
So that support from my mom on the daily comes from me calling her. And
Mm.
so I structure that into our day. Like when my son is having lunch, he talks to my mom and
Mm.
I talk to my mom. So I'm connecting with her and he's connecting with her, even though, they are so far away from each other. Like she is a regular part of his life because I have put that into the structure of my day.
Yes.
And that's something that I need and that's something that he needs.
Yeah. It's good that you don't, put yourself into isolation because that can be easy. That can be very easy to put yourself in isolation, especially when you are home all the time, and just dedicating the time solely on your kids. Like I'm at least I'm feeding off of like you are creating balance with everything, and that's good. And I think this helps as a reminder for mommies who are listening out there who are stay-at-home moms that may feel like in distress or unhappy because they can't do other things. Like, there are definitely other ways to connect with other folks, or, to dedicate time for just yourself than just your kid, even though, yes, that is your purpose, but we shouldn't isolate, ourselves. So that's great.
That's something that I had to learn though. Like
Mm,
I I spent so much time in isolation, and I think it's because I didn't have resources.
mm,
I became a mom 5 years ago, and Reels didn't exist 5 years ago.
mm,
TikTok didn't exist 5 years ago. Like, I wasn't connecting with moms online 5 years ago. I didn't know that that was a thing that you could do.
yeah.
So, there are more resources now, I believe, and at least there are more resources that I know about. Another structural piece is that I have signed my son up for park district classes. That
Mm,
was not a
mm,
thing that like I knew right away.
mm,
That's something that I kind of like figured out when my older son turned 2. I was like, I need to go somewhere. I need
yeah.
a place to go. Where can I
Yes.
go with him? So now my younger son, we're in a park district class, and this class was like $40 for I don't know, like 12 weeks or something like
Oh,
that. We go
yeah.
every Tuesday, and it's called Music and Movement.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
there's like songs, and like teaching him how to stretch, teaching him how to dance or whatever. And he does me so bogus. Like, you as a parent, you have to participate in
Yeah.
these classes to get your child to participate. And he just like sits and looks at me or like eats a snack, and I'm like trying my hardest, like I'm exhausted doing all these dances, and he's just like looking at me. But whatever, man. I got out of the house with my
Right.
child. Someone else is teaching him something. He's learning. He likes to be out.
Right.
I like to be out. It's good, and it's a
Yeah.
part of our week, the structure of our week. Every Tuesday we're going to this class after I drop off my son at kindergarten.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Just like setting time to go outside the home. And I love that you bring that as part of your structure where you don't even have to confine yourself or even like your children inside the home just because, you are staying home for the most of the time in the day. Like, that doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to expose your children in different environments, or to connect with other kids, or even for yourself to connect with other parents as well. And yeah, that's great.
It took me a while to figure that out though.
Yeah.
So for the moms who are like contemplating becoming stay-at-home moms, or the stay-at-home moms that are just like at home and don't know what to do, if you can find another stay-at-home mom and ask
Mm-hmm.
them what they're doing, they might have an answer for you. And for me, I felt like I didn't have that. So if you don't have that, I'm here.
Yes. Yes, of course. Alrighty, so now we can kind of shift gear in terms of this kind of like comparison battle, right, between the working mom and the stay-at-home mom. So my first question is like for mommies who are not stay-at-home moms, what is one thing you'd want to say to them about perhaps some misconceptions that people may think of what stay-at-home moms do?
It's really it's not fun all the time. I mean,
Mm,
I don't know if you can speak to this as a mom who is working outside of the home, but like, what are your weekends like?
mm,
Like, are you with your kid inside all day, and does that drive you crazy? Are you trying to like find things for them to do, or like can you imagine what your day would be like if you just were with your kid inside all the time? Are the weekends hard for you at all? Is that something that you deal with? Like that's kind of like what it's like. And for people who are of a business mindset, I would compare it to like entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Like entrepreneurship is really difficult. People think, oh, you're your own boss. Like that should be so cool. But also everything, everything is on you. You're responsible for everything.
Hmm.
The success, the failure, like you take it all. It is all yours. And it feels a lot like failing often. And you carry a guilt if you are not doing everything, because you're not just a mom, you're like a professional mom. Like
Hmm.
this is your job. You're stay-at-home mom. Like, all right, well then you must be really good at it then. Like
Hmm.
your house must be like in perfect shape, and your kids, like they must behave so well, and you must have like all the Montessori like learning things, and you must like teach them really well, and like you must have like the home cooked meals, and you
Hmm.
must like have everything going good because you have the time, because
Hmm.
this is what you do all day, right? And it's not it's not
Hmm.
really like that at all.
Yeah. 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 Thank you for like debunking that, because we think of like the typical 1950s, like mom, right? Where everything was made, done and perfect by the time the partner or the hubby comes home and the kids are cleaned up and ready to go to bed, and it's like, no, like your day to day can also be dysfunctional even though you are a stay-at-home mom, and that is okay. And I think with Latinos, like at least, and we kind of had this conversation before the recording of this episode, but the way that I grew up, it's like, okay, you are a mom, you are a wife, like these are your duties, and therefore they should be perfect, right? Like, and I'm speaking more so about like having a clean house, that it should all present itself well. There are no excuses. And do you feel like you have that pressure as a stay-at-home mom, like in having this perfect like home, when quote unquote you have all this time, or you're quote unquote just like home all the time, right? Like, and I think that for me, that has been my perception. Like if I decide to stay at home, then that means that my home should be perfect, because again, I have all the time. And I just want to remind everyone that it's okay if it's not. And what are your thoughts about that?
I would say that you have less time than you think you will
Mm,
have.
yeah.
Like you at you're working a 9 to 5, and you're like, man, I could really do stuff. If I
Mm,
wasn't working at this job, I could really do all this stuff at home that I want to do. And your child will come and sort of knock all those plans out the window.
yeah.
Like, I just cleaned this thing, and then they come and mess it up.
Yeah.
Or, there's always this constant, like, I just did this, and then there's more again. So you won't have as much time as you think you will. It's going to be trading one hard job for another hard job.
Mm,
And there's no I'm I'm not saying any one hard job is better than the other at all. They're both hard,
hmm.
and we choose our hard is all.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And kind of following to what you said, like, there is definitely this constant battle about, like, which is the best mom, right? Whether if it's the working mom or the stay at home mom, I believe that this is such a personal choice, and you're not going to be a bad mom or a good mom in whatever decision you decide. So I wanted to ask this question, like, about like what are your thoughts about this like battle or comparison battle, and what is something you wish that can be changed about this narrative, about the working mom versus the stay-at-home mom? What are your thoughts about that?
I want to ask, like, who's making the comments first of all?
Mm,
Who's making the comments on who's better? Because I feel like working moms and stay-at-home moms, we empathize with each other a lot. And I can look at you and I know that it must be hard being away from your children all day. I get it. I actually I worked for like 3 weeks before I decided, nah, this is not for me.
mm-hmm.
Because my husband is a teacher, he had the summer off, right? And so I ended my maternity leave and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna see how this is and see what happens. And then there was a position open. They didn't offer it to me. I'm like, man, forget this. But it was hard. It was so
Yeah.
hard. My We were just getting into a group. He was like younger than 3 months old. And I didn't see him all day. And then I get home and then I think we ate dinner and then he went to sleep because, he was 3 months old. And like,
Mm,
I didn't get any time with him. And I was pumping in my office
mm,
and that sucked. Just like closing the door and trying to pump and people like being weird about it,
mm-hmm,
like, oh,
mm-hmm.
she's like taking a break or whatever. Like,
It's not a break.
like, I know. I mean, I didn't do it for long, right? It was three
Mm-hmm,
weeks, but those 3 weeks sucked enough
mm,
for me to be like, no, forget this. So
yeah.
I I know that it's got to be hard for you in more ways than one. I wonder if the people who are commenting are like outsiders, people who are not working moms or stay-at-home moms, like
Mm-hmm.
your tia or whatever. like, oh, you really should stay at home with your kids because that's what I did, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Right.
But I think another thing is that we should probably be having more conversations with
Mm-hmm.
one another about the hard things,
Yes.
about what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom and why that's hard for me. What it's like for you to be a mom who works outside of the home. Well, you work from home
Mm-hmm.
outside of the home.
Right.
Yeah. And why that's hard for you.
Right.
Like, I think it would be great if we were to have more conversations like that so that we wouldn't romanticize,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on the other side of the fence.
Exactly. I absolutely agree. And I think with you being here, it allows opportunities to just, continue on the dialogue about just being open, right? And creating community. And I think as women, oftentimes just as women, we tend to just like isolate ourselves, not seek for help necessarily, even though as Latinas, like we need a kin, right? We need our comunidad, our village. But when it comes to motherhood specifically, it's like you just got to deal with it on your own. That's what makes you a strong mom. Like you got to deal with it. And it's like no, like you got to build community. You need to reach out and definitely talk about the difficulties and even the triumphs, about being a mom also. And yeah, I hope that this kind of sparks an opportunity, like our conversation. I hope that it sparks an opportunity to build a conversation or dialogue about, you know asking someone like, oh, can you really tell me what it's like to be a working mom or what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom, and then finding commonalities within that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It's it's hard because a lot of us, like I said before, we don't have a village.
Mm.
And so where do we turn to?
Mm-hmm.
And this online space is a really good resource. I swear I have never felt so supported in my motherhood journey as I have in this past year that I created my online platform, a Mama Drama,
Mm-hmm.
because I created a space and I started talking about motherhood, and then people started talking back to me.
Yes.
Or, they said, haha, that's funny, me too. Like,
Right, right. There's some connection. Yeah.
and I didn't get to have that in real life because my real life friends are busy.
Mm-hmm.
They're not on the same schedule. Their kids are not on the same schedule as mine, or whatever the case is, like we can relate to the same things, but we just often don't have the time. And that's what I like
Mm-hmm.
about online community is you can do it on your own time when you're free.
Right, right. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope again that it enlightens like people to reach out, and I'll make sure to share your information in the show notes, because I do think that it is very important to build community and build a village, even if it's through an online platform, right? But
Mhm.
like I am more than happy to connect with you even in person, just because we live nearby. Like
Yeah.
even this like sparks, that, and like, finding a way to just be moms and cry about it, laugh about it, right? Like talk about all of those nuances, because I think it is so important to just let it out. And especially for someone who can understand, regardless if we are on both sides of the spectrum in terms of being a working mom versus a stay at home mom, like I'm sure that, again, we're going to find similarities within our experiences.
Hmm.
And that is very important. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, now I'm going to shift over to my Viva la Mami motherhood questions that I ask my guests. And so the first question is, what still surprises you about being a mommy?
That it's still hard, that it like it doesn't get easier, that you don't arrive, that like
Mm.
there's just like always another challenge. Like I thought when my son was 5, like we're good. He's in school, like yeah, this is gonna be great. And it is great. Like he's learning so much in school and he's so bright and he comes home excited and wants to share with me about his day and how he went to the library, and that's amazing. But there's also like I have to learn how to discipline now, right?
Mm.
And that's harder than, keeping a kid alive when he's younger. Like there's like more
Yeah.
nuance.
Yes.
So the thing that surprises me is that it keeps getting harder.
Ah, that's
but
great.
but I mean, you get better. Like
Mm.
what's that saying? Like it doesn't get easier. You get
Mm.
stronger, right?
Yeah.
So you rise to the occasion, and there's a constant challenge, but I think there's a constant growth as your child is growing, you are growing as well.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and just speaking the truth, right? The purpose of this platform is to not sugarcoat things about motherhood or motherhood. I think we need to speak the true and raw experiences about that. And so I appreciate you saying that it does get tougher, but again, we grow, and that is such a great thing to consider. And so what is one tip of advice that you have for a Latina mommy?
Your experiences are your own. So you don't have to mom like your mom did or your
Mm,
grandma did. You're different. You're in a different generation. In some ways, you can take all the things that they have taught you, but they didn't do everything right. They
mhm.
didn't because they didn't know, they did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And we know some more stuff now. There's more information available to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't have to do it like them. You can take pieces of that and you can make it your own. And that doesn't mean that you are not Latina because you don't do it the way that they did it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that. I yeah, I think it serves as a reminder and just like validation that our the way that we mother is unique and our own. And I thank you for sharing about the whether if you are Latina enough or not in being a mom, because that is such a constant battle that I even had.
I
um
big
you
time,
know
big time for
yeah,
me too.
yeah,
I feel like in Latino families, there's this mindset where it's like the parent is always right,
yes,
and the parent will not apologize because the parent is always right. And that is something that I am full on rejecting with
mm,
my children. Sometimes I'm wrong, and
yeah,
sometimes I do or say things that I shouldn't do. And if my son calls me out on it, good,
mm,
good. And when I know that I have done something wrong, if I yell at him or I talk to him in a way that I wouldn't like him to talk to me or to another person, I say sorry.
mm,
And that is not something that I experience a lot. And that is something that I am trying to change moving forward.
yeah, that is great. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think we need to be accountable for our actions, for our words.
I also want to set the example for him
Yes.
of apologizing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do it, my hope is that he will do it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so, my final question is, what is your meaning of motherhood?
It is a beautiful journey of becoming the person that I was always meant to be.
Mm,
It is an addition to my life that has just made everything sweeter. It has refined me, it has grown me, and it's one of the best parts of me now.
mm,
And it's just like like I said, a journey, but I kind of don't like that word because I don't like journeys. I don't like they sound hard and I don't want to sign up for hard things. But
mm,
that's what it is, man. It is
mm-hmm,
hard, but you really enjoy it as
mm.
well.
Yeah.
So it's it's the thing that has made me the most me that I have ever been, the me
Mm,
that I was meant to be.
yes. Oh, what a great answer, and just like a great reflection. Like I don't even know you, but I can just feed off of like how wonderful of a mother you are, and just like how self-aware you are about your motherhood experience and or journey, whatever it may be.
Yeah, word. Yeah. No, I like experience. I like that word better.
Yeah, motherhood
Yeah.
experience. There you go. Yeah, thank you so much. So, where can people follow you?
Well, I'm on Instagram at a dot mama dot drama,
Oh,
and I'm on TikTok as a dot mama dot drama. But
okay,
I
great.
spend more time on Instagram, so you can hit me in the DMs there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And like I said, I'll make sure to share your information in the show notes so that people can follow you. Amanda, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for tuning in to the Viva la Mami podcast. If you like this episode, make sure to leave a review and write what episode really resonated with you. If you really loved it, share it on social media or with an amiga. As always, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening. Make sure to follow me at Viva la Mami on Instagram or visit vivalamami.com. Please note the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be replaced by your healthcare provider nor taken as professional advice.